Welcome, everybody. This is the third episode of Evolution of Leadership. It's highlighting a lot of our movers and shakers in the Indigenous community, and we'd like to open up a conversation with different people who are making things happen. And one of these people that we're talking about today is my very, very good friend, Christopher Henry. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Christopher and I go back a lot of years, and Christopher has a really interesting scenario. He's Indigenous, believe it or not. Look at him.
I am indeed Indigenous, yes.
That's right. Maybe I'll open it up so you can talk. Introduce yourself, Christopher.
Okay, yeah. My name's Christopher Henry. I'm the president of Indigenous Canadian Medical Dispensaries. Currently, I find myself the interim CEO of the Indigenous Chamber of Commerce here in Manitoba. So I had 25 years experience in construction, high-level construction projects. I was involved in everything from the Museum of Human Rights, the Jets Arena, to the dams up in northern Manitoba.
Some big stuff.
And then in 2018, we created Indigenous Canadian Medical Dispensaries with a goal of giving sovereignty to First Nations and control of the medical services, pharmacy services, harm reduction programs, everything that they're using in their communities, but giving them either direct ownership of it or rebating 50% of the profits we make from
huge.
Those communities.
Yeah, and I'm a partner of that, by the way, a small partner. Yeah. And
full disclosure.
Full disclosure.
We just 10% of the company.
Yeah. Which is no problem because we got nothing to hide here.
No.
Just like anything else, when we talk about these things, there's no script. You know, whenever I follow a script, I actually end up screwing it up. You know
for sure. I'd rather be a natural conversation.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing today. We're just opening up our conversation. I want people to know about you, Christopher. You have a very interesting story, interesting past. Let's go back a little bit about your life, your family, your wife, your child, and stuff like that. Let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about you first, maybe where you were born, and then we could talk about Megan and all that stuff.
Very, very simple. You know, I was born in Winnipeg, Manitoba. My wife was as well. We have one child together, Hunter Henry. Funny enough, we were working in Thompson, Manitoba at the time. So Hunter's middle name is Thompson.
Oh, really? And that's how that started,
yeah,
because of Thompson, Manitoba?
It was. Also, a hero of mine is Hunter S. Thompson, a famous writer from back in the day. So I actually tricked my wife a little bit. She says I did. I thought I was upfront. But while she was holding the child and we were naming him, I actually officially named him Hunter S. Thompson Henry. She didn't clue into that till later.
Oh, she didn't.
No, but I am Red River Métis. I'm very proud of it. I'm very involved in the Métis community, and that's where a lot of my desire to work with Indigenous communities, not just Métis, but First Nation and everyone else, comes from. Is that it's a long history in our family. So yes, you look at me and I do look very different than the average Métis, but that's because most people don't know Métis aren't just French and Native, right? No. They are actually also Scottish. And there is a very, somewhat rare range of Scottish Métis. So my family were Scottish. They came directly from Scotland a long, long time ago. Actually, around 1780.
Wow, 1780.
1780, yeah. So they came into York Landing. I believe we were the first boat. That's, the records.
Yeah, I found that really fascinating. Really talk about that. It's really interesting.
So it is actually really interesting. And we give a lot of our thanks to the First Nation communities, because the community that when we landed there, it was, as usual, very, very cold. Near dead of winter time in terms of our view of snow coming from Scotland. Yeah. Most of the crew and ship and passenger were going to die. They were going to freeze up there. They had landed and they had enough provisions, but they certainly didn't know how to take care of themselves. They didn't know how to live in the environment that Canada provides. And the First Nation community took them in and essentially rescued them. That line, and me, myself, conversely, would have ended right there if it wasn't for the generosity and the care of the Indigenous people there, yeah.
And that was through York Factory?
Through York Factory, York Landing, yeah.
York Landing,
yeah.
That's crazy.
So they were either the first or second, but we believe it was the first, because otherwise the next boats would have known, hey, be prepared for winter.
How did you find out about that? Did you go back into your history archives to find out more about your lineage?
In order to be Red River Métis, you have to prove your lineage.
Okay,
There's no way to just claim your Métis and, here you go, we give you a card. No, it's actually a very, very, very difficult process to go through. And you have to have near perfect records. You have to be able to trace your genealogy back to a certain point. It was so far back that wouldn't be allowed. So we went through those records, and then
real stringent process.
stringent process. It's, they don't just hand that out. It is a thing.
Isn't that something,
To be Red River Métis, you should be very, very proud. It is a very distinct nation with our own treaties and everything else. Quite honestly, I am proud to be Red River Métis.
That's awesome. You know what? As you know, I'm good friends with David Chartrand.
Yep.
I like joking with David all the time because when you look at my history, my mother's as treaty as they come. She could barely speak English from the Garden Hill and Chinook Nation, and she married a British pilot.
Yep.
Ralph Birch, my father. It was a British gentleman, really, really awesome guy. I miss him. He died of cancer 18 years ago. I miss him, and there isn't a day that doesn't go by that I don't think about him. But at the end of the day, what happened when she married Ralphie, my father, she lost her status.
Yes.
That was outright discrimination when you think about that, right?
It was a way to exterminate the Indigenous population's identity.
That's incredible,
They've done that. There was many reasons why they would strip Indigenous people of their status. That wasn't just one. I mean, one of the most offensive I found was when returning soldiers from war were stripped of their status. Many soldiers didn't know that.
Isn't that amazing?
When they pledged to fight for the Canadian Army. Yeah. So
right.
There was a lot of injustices in a lot of different areas.
That's crazy, but
I mean, that's what brings me to participating in stuff. It's what brought me to working with the Indigenous Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, there's something about it. Well, we're going to get to that in a second, but I want to tell you that I ended up getting my status back in 1986. It was my brother Richard and I. My mother applied to get her status back, which was under Bill C-31. So I remember that day when I got my status back. It's crazy. It was an overwhelming feeling because all of a sudden, because I had a Métis card.
Yep.
So I do tease David.
I remember hearing this story.
Yeah, I do tease David Chartrand up until a couple of months ago. He went moose hunting. I said, David, you should ask a guy like me to come moose hunting with you, just in case you're out of your jurisdiction, that you could use my treaty card. He goes, listen here, you bugger. We trained you to be the person you are today. The successful businessman, the person you are because you were Métis for the first 18 years of your life, and so don't you ever forget it.
Yeah, there you go.
So we do joke about it, but this is real, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I have to say that David Chartrand's done phenomenal things for the Métis Nation. He's secured us rights, he's secured us opportunities, he's secured us a government and self-determination. There's always conflicts between Métis and Indigenous communities.
Right.
But I think that as a distinct group of people, we have to stand up for ourselves.
Yeah.
And David Chartrand has stood up for the Métis people. So,
has he ever? I'm really
love
proud.
Him or hate him, I think he's done a fantastic job.
He is. And not only that, he's a good friend of mine. That guy never turns me away when I ask for a visit. You know what I mean? So I do really respect that. So tell us about the Henry family, because you come from I've met your father. I've been to your cottage. You and I have been good friends for many years. Maybe getting back to that, you and I have been buddies for over 20 years, isn't it?
Absolutely, coming up 25 years.
Yeah.
Now.
So, but we took a hiatus for a little while, about 10 years.
Yeah,
about 10 years we took a hiatus. I didn't really hear from you.
Yeah.
I went through a lot and did a lot of soul searching in my life. And I remember, because I specialize in retail, I was trying to reach out to Ken Henry. I remember making a text, Henry.
That's right, yeah.
And I remember, this guy is responding very quickly, very fast. Holy cow!
Very prompt.
Yeah. And it was so I remember setting up the meeting to go meet at Earl's Polo Park, but it was when I showed up at the meeting, you were the one sitting there. It was a different Henry. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I was hoping to see the chief, but
Not
you know
Chief
what?
Henry,
You'll do. And that's how that resurrected our friendship again.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And
through that's why, when I was looking for a new path after construction, we talked about healthcare and the need for
That's right.
And
that conversation started from that day about healthcare, didn't
Yep.
it? And we didn't waste idle chit chat. We went right to talking about business.
100%. And I mean, in 8 short years, we took that concept to the point where last year, the IcMD group returned over $500,000 to First Nation communities.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money that they were never getting. And now that they can hire their own nurses, their own program coordinators, buy the things that they need to supplement the healthcare programs that need improving.
Yeah. You know what? It's a real dog-eat-dog world out there. But getting back to your history. You lived in Thompson. You come from a very prominent family, the West Ken family. Your father, you and your brother and your sister. Amazing, I'd like to call it a dynasty. Your father worked hard to get there, and you're part of that family dynamic.
Absolutely. Yeah. My father, we all lived outside of the city, and all of our family over the years, no one ever really left community either. I have an uncle who was trapping, we had, farming and those kind of things. But my father came to Winnipeg, after meeting my mother, and they came here, and he started a company called Westcan Electrical.
Wow.
So over 45 years ago now, that company has grown. I believe they are around a $200 million a year in construction company.
That's amazing.
Massively grown. But the most important thing, that he always taught us was he only actually had a grade 7 education. He left school after grade 7. So maybe he was going into grade 8.
Yeah.
But he left school because he needed to provide for the family. They, as you know, oftentimes you've got to earn money as soon as you can so that you can provide for the family. And, there's things that go up and down.
Yeah, but that was a different time, different era. It's like me. I went as far as grade 9, grade 10.
Yeah.
But in today's world, my children have to be educated because it's a different
100%.
world out there, Christopher.
But that's something he was always very proud of.
Yeah.
And he's still smarter than me.
I've met your dad, I know.
But that's the thing. He always believed that it was the man, not the education, not what other people put on you, but what you could do for yourself. Mm-hmm. And he raised us like that. Mm-hmm. We joke. We always had, he was always a good father, but we always had a boss for a father, right? Mm-hmm. And he trained us. He trained us how to look at business.
He probably wasn't the most maternal gentleman. It seemed like he's all work, work, work.
He is today.
Yeah. He's a little more maternal today.
What? I cannot fault him for anything. My father was a man where, you always want better than what you had as a child.
Yeah.
And, he was very much, maybe he didn't have all that affection as a child. So he was always very, very believing and strong and telling us
different era, different time.
That he would hug and kiss us because he didn't have that. So he put a lot into that. So I would say he was very fatherly. Mm-hmm. But business was his love. That's his existence. He's still working today alongside my brother at Westcan, right? My brother now runs the company.
Right.
And my father is still there advising and connecting relationships and stuff. But so he did raise us as a boss. He taught us, this always 5 minutes early is late and so on and so on. All the little sayings and all the ways in which you should be a proper businessman. And because of that, I excelled in life. I've excelled right to the point where, through construction and large-scale project management that he provided me with, we started this healthcare company. Yeah. Now being the interim CEO with the Indigenous Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, yeah. I want to get to that in a minute. But you ended up in Thompson. Why the heck would you move up to Thompson? Like, there's pros and cons to living in the north, but a guy like you,
I think
5 years?
One thing is, when you work for family, there's always the impression that you didn't earn it, you were just given that job. So we were raised that if there is a job that needs to be done, put your hand up. If they need people to go to town, put your hand up. And it just so happened that we were doing the Kiosk and Quatnu conversion station and dams for Manitoba Hydro up north, and we had a division there, and we were losing the manager. So they had no options. They had no idea how they were going to fill this role. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'll go up there.
You decided to do it.
So we moved up there. We lived there for a little over 5 years. Yeah. Traveled back and forth, and that's where I got to meet other communities.
And your wife, Megan, moved up there to Thompson as well?
She did, yeah. She moved in with me. Yeah, moved up there. We were married already at that point for several years. So, no, she came, which was, I have to give a lot of props to her. She gave up what she was doing here and her jobs, and she was very big in the horseback riding community.
Right. There's no horses up in Thompson.
There is.
No way.
Yes,
really?
There is. There's actually
there's horses there.
There's a farm up there, and people board the horses and stuff. It's a big challenge to bring in hay and stuff in the winter, but there is. I was surprised. So was she.
Really?
But, no, we didn't do much horseback riding up there.
So when you came back after being up in Thompson, did you kind of went on your own? Did you do that right away, or did you come back and work with Westcan?
I finished the last couple of years, with Westcan and finished up projects that we were doing. Yeah. Obviously my father and brother very much wished for me to stay with the company. But I also like being my own person. Yeah. I like doing multiple things. I like different avenues to explore. So, when you and I were talking about this healthcare company, I thought there was a great opportunity there. And like I said, I'm pretty proud. We contribute a lot back to
You did.
communities now.
You
It's
did.
8 short years, we made a heck of a company. So
Isn't that something, eh? So now that IcMD, where's IcMD at now today?
well, we supply pharmacy,
Yeah.
medical supply, and harm reduction programs. I think we have a total coverage area of close to 50,000 people. They're not all our clients, of
No,
course. Not
no.
everybody's on pharmacy.
Yeah.
But I did learn that, when we started this, and that, First Nations overprescribe pharmacy at a rate of 3 to 1 of the average Canadian.
That's crazy.
So our goals, counterproductive to business goals, was to reduce that number. Why are they on so many, right? So we provide a large network coverage here in Manitoba and large communities, Norway House Cree Nation,
Yeah.
Island Lake communities. We look at Moose Lake, we're looking at other ones here, and then multiple communities in Saskatchewan as well. So we're just
So tell
plugging
me
a-
about
plugging away.
the crack pipes.
We have become one of the largest suppliers of harm reduction products to First Nations and the Canadian government.
And that's what I want people to hear about this part of it, because it isn't something to laugh about. The way I worded it is kind of out there.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll tell you what. When we first went after this program, because it was a federal tender,
Yeah.
but we were saying crack and meth and so much that we were worried our phones were picking it up. And we were worried our child was going to be like, Mom and Dad are selling crack. It's crazy because we wanted to do this program for First Nations communities. It was being provided by your standard large, big scale medical suppliers, right? And they were really squeezing the pricing, and they were really making it difficult for people to provide these goods.
Right.
And people ask, well, why would we want to provide those goods? That's crazy. We're just enabling people.
Right.
But the truth is, it is harm reduction. So what actually happens is, by making sure that they have constant contact with somebody, they come in and they see someone, that's a chance for someone to say, today could be the day. Today could be the day you quit. It stops them from engaging in harmful activities when they do it. I mean, I was horrified to learn, in the deep throes of these heavy addictions, they'll break a light bulb and smoke while cooking off a light bulb.
That's incredible.
They would cut their hands.
Oh.
They would get mouth sores. They would get all these things. So originally the government had put out a tender request to provide these kits. And yes, it came with a pipe, but it also came with alcohol swabs to clean it, so they weren't passing around hepatitis and herpes and other stuff. It came with mouthpieces, so they weren't burning themselves and causing ulcers and other things, which meant that they would have to go to a medical clinic or somewhere else. And that's somewhat of the harm reduction piece. Is a lot of these programs are put in place to reduce the harm these people are doing to themselves, so that you have better access to healthcare, so that you can get in when you need to go see someone at a doctor's office or somewhere else, or urgent care. So from there, we did do a large program with the government of Canada, and then we started doing it direct with First Nations. We don't do it in terms of a large profit margin. We buy products and we add 10% to the cost.
Yeah. Well, you got to make money, and profit's not a dirty word, obviously.
No, it isn't. And it gives us an opportunity. Many of these communities that we do harm reduction with, we're also doing pharmacy and medical supply.
Right.
Because once they realize that they're truly our partner, which is the only way that you should work with a First Nation community, is to go in and say, I want to be your partner. Not that I want to work for you or give you a program or do something else. I want to partner with you to expand your opportunities and your access to employment and access to income, etc. Right.
Right.
That's the important way to do it. So we partner with these communities to provide them these harm reduction products and harm reduction programs.
Right.
We're opening up new partnerships with very exciting telemedicine companies to provide mental health and other access to anyone who has a phone in a community, as long as there's phone or Wi-Fi
Well, technology has changed so much in the last 10, 15 years, where we have that reach with people right at the palm of their hands. And that includes elders as well, right?
100%, yeah. In fact, that was one of the things that was really important to us that we started working on in the last couple of years, was developing an elder care smartwatch, almost like a band.
Yeah.
And that band allows elders we actually call it the Act 55, and we call it that because it's act like you're 55, even though you're 80, act like you're 55 again, with the safety of an SOS button. So
I love that, because my mom is 85. She's very healthy, but that SOS button would be really nice to have.
It's it's similar
Just
to
in case she
necklaces and
falls.
other stuff, but it's that button. It allows her to push a button in case she's in trouble.
Yeah.
You can do it on a non-subscription model. So many people get locked into these very expensive models to do it. So you can buy the device and have a non-subscription model where it just calls Michael Birch when your mom's in trouble.
That's great.
Otherwise, if it can't reach you, it will go to
After the
emergency
show's
services.
over, I'm going to ask you about that, because I want to
sure.
I want to get my mom on
I
that
think the
program.
greatest thing that we like about this device, and it's coming out finally this year, is the fact that it's also a tracking device in terms of elders, because we're now dealing with a lot more dementia
Right.
and Alzheimer's and a lot of stuff, but elders still want to be independent. They don't
Right.
want to be anywhere. So when your mom, for example, if she had this device, she leaves her apartment, she
Right.
wants to go shopping or do something,
Right.
you get a text message. Mom's left her apartment.
Right.
And then when she returns home, you get a text message. Mom is back at home.
Oh.
And at any point in time between those two text messages, you can click a link and see where your mom is.
That's incredible. And
So
you know
it's
what?
gonna-
For all you people out there that are worried about your parents, your grandparents, this is something we've got to make sure that gets out.
Absolutely, yeah. It's
Right?
out this year. It's
It
gonna
is,
be a
eh?
fantastic
Isn't that
change.
great? That's awesome. So, getting back to something I want to talk to you, and you're passionate about it, is the cannabis industry. And that's how this IcMD came about. The name, what is it? What is it?
So
what is it called?
it's Indigenous Canadian Medical Dispensaries.
That's right.
And when you and I were launching this, there was an opportunity to work with an extremely large cannabis company.
Right.
And they wanted to do medical cannabis for First Nations. So we thought, yeah, okay, we can make some money at this. There's an opportunity
Right.
there.
I remember that. And that's why we
this
got
was
into
around
this to begin.
2018 when they were legalizing
That's
cannabis.
right, when it was legal.
At our first meeting, they introduced us to their app. They had, this was new in apps and stuff, whatever. But they introduced us to this app, which put their patients in touch with a nurse practitioner or a doctor. And it was at that point in time we said, well, wait a minute. Far more important than medical cannabis, if you can provide me a nurse or doctor in community on a phone, that's what we want to do. So we ended up doing that, and that's where the name came from, was IcMD, like
You see,
I see a medical doctor.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
It's two different words, really.
So we've gone through an evolution with that. We built our own app because they just wanted to focus on medical cannabis.
Right.
So we invested and built our own First Nation owned and developed application. All the data stays here; it doesn't ever go anywhere.
Right.
And we went through that process to develop telemedicine. Now that's a challenging market to get into, and you have big players like QDoc and Get Maple and others
Right.
like that. But finally, this year we're cracking through with a new partner that has really reinvented the game for First Nation medical access. So
That's
I'm
great
pretty
because they
excited
got to
about that.
understand us. They got to understand the culture, the sensitivity behind it all. You can't just expect the Indigenous people to use the app.
No, 100%.
Right?
100%. So that's exciting.
That is exciting. And another thing, too, that really gets me is that it's still looked at as not a good thing to introduce cannabis in some of the communities. I come from the Garden Hill Anshinu community. I know it's kind of not in your wheelhouse, but cannabis really hits home for me.
Yep.
And I know you've been involved a little bit and you dabbled in cannabis. You want to talk a little bit about what you do in cannabis today? I know it's kind of off the track, because I find it really interesting.
We actually, and it's not that it's not in our wheelhouse or that we don't do cannabis, we don't sell medical cannabis anymore. And what we quickly realized is there was a lot of misunderstanding about it. There's a lot of opposition to it in communities. It's another drug. It's another thing that's terrible. And I mean, let's be honest. All of our parents and grandparents were raised on, it was the devil's weed, right? So there was those misunderstandings. And like I said, when we saw that there was now the capability of giving First Nation communities a doctor on their phone, we quickly pivoted away from that. But what I did do is start to work with an incredible First Nation doctor. Her name's Dr. Shelley Turner.
Okay.
And she took her entire medical practice and specialized it around using cannabis as a harm reduction product. And not just harm reduction for opioids or methamphetamines or anything like that, but also for the overabundance of prescriptions and overprescribing, I guess is the word, on people. So she'll use that medical cannabis to reduce people off of gabapentins and off of blood pressure medications. She's been very successful in lowering people's needs for diabetes drugs by using medical cannabis.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And she runs a phenomenal program. She's done several pilot programs now with communities to help the most vulnerable addicted members get off of these hard drugs.
Right.
So she's got full programs and she works with the communities and she, explains to them why it's better than not having it, why they're able to get these people off the drugs and distract them from the fact that they're, not going through withdrawal amphetamines or anything else.
That's crazy. Let me get back to you a little bit on that. If I wanted to open a cannabis store in my community in Garden Hill, oh my gosh, there would be a major outcry. It's just like they class it in the same class as putting a liquor store in there or a bar.
I think a large part of it too, though, for the nation is control of the products. They don't have any control over meth in their community. They don't have any control.
Well, it's a huge underground.
They don't have any control over the crack epidemic. And now it's unfortunately and sadly the fentanyl epidemic.
Oh my gosh.
They don't have control over that. They have one of the best, I'll tell you what, Garden Hill and Island Lake have one of the best harm reduction programs and recovery centers and everything else out of all the nations in Manitoba.
I didn't know that.
They have built a beautiful program, and they own the pharmacy and medical clinic across from Perimeter Air on Ellis. And in there they're doing harm reduction, and that's their own
Ellis and Ferry.
That's right. So they're very much at the forefront of that, but that's treating the symptoms.
Yeah.
And not treating the cause. So when you talk about cannabis, it gives them, it's very, very hard to get someone off of an opioid or a methadone. But this is an alternative solution that's way less harmful, far more natural. And if they did have their own store in the community, well, now they can control how much is being done in the community, how much, how is that sold. They have a bit more say, whether they like it or not, and whether they have opposition to the cannabis. People are ordering that.
Oh, they are
off the internet and having it delivered by mail.
But I'm trying to look at it as another alternative rather than being on meth, crack, heroin, and 100%. All of these horrible things, because it's a
that's much like harm reduction, though, Mike. You see what we're talking about here is giving them an alternate solution. If someone who has grown up in a cycle of addiction and everything else feels that need or that almost biological desire to go engage with those substances, what choice do they have? They have none. They have no alcohol. They have no cannabis. They have illegal street drugs. So if they're in that, and you know what, genetically they're predispositioned to addictions, the only choice they have in that community is crack or methamphetamines or fentanyl.
It's just
so. You know, I can see where they all this come from, and I can see the position they take because they grew up with the knowledge that any drug is bad. But at the same time, if you don't give those people a choice, then the only choice they're going to be able to access are very, very harsh drugs.
Well, that's a topic that we could talk about for days.
Absolutely. You know, I very much want to help people improve.
Yeah, so do I. I kind of support it, but it's a different...
My family has extensive addiction problems. My father was a very, he was a very bad alcoholic. He's been clean and sober for, I think, 35 years now.
I'm 7 years.
But, so it speaks to our hearts.
That's right.
I've got family that have suffered, and they have addiction issues.
A lot of people out there have family members that, if you're immune to it, you're right. People are right in the thick of it, 100%. No matter how it is. But
I think it's important, and it is a discussion I'd love to have with you, because I think that there's ways through different groups and programs. The Plant-Based Medicine Board that was formed by a bunch of Indigenous communities in Regina, Saskatchewan, they have come up with ways to do these recovery programs and stuff based on Indigenous culture and community, and they have whole systems in which they come in and they run these programs, because it's not just enough to take someone off the street and clean them up. You got to give them a community. You got to give them a support program. You got to keep, even if it's coming in for a cup of bone broth soup every day to speak, right? I mean, what's the most successful programs surrounding alcohol is Alcoholics Anonymous. Why? Because they have a place to go speak and continue to talk about the pain that they feel.
I like that, Christopher. We'll revisit that conversation later because of the timing we got. I want to talk about your involvement with the Chamber of Commerce. I'm sorry to speed up through that, but this is really interesting stuff. Let's talk about the Indigenous Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, the Indigenous Chamber has been around for over 20 years. It was created by a woman named Pat Turner in Grand Rapids area.
I remember Pat Turner.
Do you?
Yeah.
She was a very dynamic woman.
Yeah.
So she actually created it in 2004.
Okay.
And from there, we've evolved. We represent a little over 250 members now. We're about 60% Indigenous First Nation businesses, and the other 40% are standard Canadian businesses that wish to work with First Nations.
Oh.
So we bridge that gap and allow the connection of our communities and our communities' businesses with the general public companies that know they want to be in those areas. They want to work with them. So the Chamber's been very, very successful.
You just took over this position. Let's talk about the title of your position.
Yeah, so I'm the interim CEO.
Okay.
We had a CEO working for us, and she's actually moved moved on into another area in Indigenous communities, which is mining and development. She works for a PDAC group.
Okay.
So as a result of her moving on, I took over the interim position as CEO. I've been doing it since October last year.
Okay.
And we're in the final stages of looking for a new CEO to bring into that position.
So you want to step down from that? You're just helping resurrect, keep it going?
I had an opportunity to make sure the Chamber continued moving forward without an interruption in all the great programs we did.
Yeah, because it could have faltered if it didn't have
Absolutely.
good care.
It's near and dear to my heart. I mean, I was involved in the construction industry. I was the president of the Electrical Association. I was a part of the trade and transmission lines. I really believe that if you're going to be in an industry, you should be giving back and be involved in it, right? So I came to the Chamber about 3 or 4 years ago, quickly moved on to the executive committee, became the treasurer of the Chamber of Commerce, stabilized how our finances were being reported, how everything worked.
Okay.
And when this opportunity came up, as my father always taught us, if something needs to be done, no one's doing it, put your hand up.
And you did that.
That's what I did, yeah. So I've been helping them run the Chamber for the last 4 or 5 months, I suppose.
Okay, so what organizations qualify for the Chamber? So let's push the Chamber of Commerce here, Indigenous Chamber of Commerce. I think it's really important because it's an ecosystem that we can all tap into,
100%.
right? Let's talk about that.
Well, I mean, we set ourselves up as the voice of Indigenous business, right? And with a strong membership base, we have a strong voice in anything that's occurring. So there's no size requirement or anything else. You could be a student, you could be an individual who's a crafter and wants to get into more trade shows, right on into major corporations. I mean, we're proud to have Manitoba Hydro as part of us. We're proud to have many, large corporations.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. What are some of the big, companies that are part of the Chamber of Commerce?
I think I'm very proud to have Hydro as part of it because they have such an effect on Indigenous communities.
Sure.
But Hydro is also involved in many boards. I'm proud of the construction firms and the firms that deeply want to work with First Nation and Indigenous communities. They come to the Chamber, they become members, and then they connect through our networking events and through our directory with the communities that way. Because it's always difficult for a company that says, hey, I just want to go work with First Nation communities, right? But that's what we do. We connect them, we network them, we bring them together, and we help them develop those projects.
That's right. So it could be individuals, it could be First Nation communities, anybody that wants to.
Student, individual, small business, medium business, large business, corporation, institution, not-for-profit.
Yeah. So there's no excuses, people, that you can't join the Indigenous Chamber of Commerce and 100%. Make it work.
I think maybe our student, outside of the student membership, which is really cheap, but our our cheapest membership is probably about $100, $150.
Wow.
And that's
not even that much.
But that's what we want to do. It's very important that we can help that small guy come into it. And a guy like me, I was very privileged. And despite, we worked hard for it. My father worked hard, but I grew up learning business. I knew how to go start a business. I knew how to.
This is right up your alley.
Team. So I knew how to do that. But how does a guy, I had a very neat guy come to me the other day, this Mr. Niepanak. He's a young student. He's got great plans. He's developing his own program to connect with people and Indigenous personal connections in community, right? He's got a great plan. But he came to the Chamber, he said, well, how do I start this? Where do I start? What do I do? So even though I'm the interim CEO, I personally took that call.
But Christopher, you've started businesses. You know
100%.
how it all works.
I'm happy to help mentor you. And we're happy to
help. And that's something you're doing kind of on your own, obviously.
Well, I'm doing it because I am the interim chamber, but to me it's near and dear to my heart to help people have the opportunities.
And there's a lot of mentors as well in the Chamber of Commerce that you could tap into, right?
Yep, but he had such a good story. I was really looking forward.
Well, I'm joining as of today.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm going to join.
You're not a member yet?
I think I might be. I don't know if
I think we
Steve
sent you some documents.
Yeah. So I got to join on because I'm always constantly mentoring people. The emails that I get, how do I register a business? How do I? How do I?
That's what the chamber's there for. If someone doesn't know, we have a business starting course. We have training courses.
There you go. These are things that I had to learn.
Insurance, how to pay your taxes, how to do all these things. I mean, that's something, I thought I knew everything about business, but I was never in the accounting department of my office. That's one place that a lot of First Nation and Indigenous entrepreneurs get caught up in, is they don't know how to process the taxes. How do I process a payroll? How do I pay the government taxes?
Yeah.
They don't know these things. So
Well, I had to learn
provide those
that myself
opportunities.
when I was like 16 years old. I was selling drinks, chips, chocolate bars out
And
of
I'm
a
sure
10.
you made a few
Yeah,
mistakes.
yeah. Did I ever? Like I had this old Casio cash register, and it was just an adding machine. That's all it was. And we did over 350,000 sales the first year, but I didn't do any financials. By year 3, I had different technology. I had accounting. I had different, a good program, because I was able to track my numbers, cash in, cash out, and that's what business is about. But I learned the hard way. It wasn't easy. You know what I mean?
Well, and there wasn't the internet then.
No,
you had
no,
to
it's
learn by experience.
That's right.
So we have the opportunity. The Chamber's
No
really
cell
good.
phones when I started.
Chamber's really good helping these people do their businesses, expand their business, access grants and funding, and do other things.
Great opportunity.
We launch multiple events every year. We've got Launching Success, a leadership luncheon that we do every year. That's coming up right away.
Okay, that's coming up.
We run a bit of an Indigenous Dragon's Den that day with
really?
Some new startups and other things. Yeah. So the Chamber, we focus a lot on, our number one priority is membership. And then networking and events, so those members can talk to each other. And then we do advocacy. So we've been very deeply involved in the procurement process that's happening. We're involved with the government very deeply in the new economic development agency that they're creating. So yeah, it's a very rewarding Chamber of Commerce to work with.
That's fantastic. So I'm encouraging the young people out there that there is a way. You have the resources. You have places like the Chamber of Commerce to tap into. And there's no excuses, and there's no room for failure in a lot of ways, because you have access to this whole plethora of information.
One thing I would really promote about the Chamber is the fact that we have the Indigenous Business Directory.
Right.
And you don't have to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce to be in the Indigenous Business Directory.
Right.
So surrounding the procurement field, the government always needs to know that you are a verified First Nation or Métis and Inuit business, what it may be. We're very proud to say we have one of the best verified, directories of Indigenous businesses, which again don't have to be members of the Chamber.
And it's almost like you're vetted by the Chamber of Commerce almost.
Well, it is 100% that we're vet. We vet that they actually are the owner of the company, that they're actually working there, that they haven't given away all their shares to someone else. We make sure that they're truly Indigenous. In the procurement field, when the federal government came and they said we were going to give 5% of all of our procurement to First Nation businesses.
Right.
Their business directory, which they had, and which is why we created our own, because it was not a verified directory. It went from 1,800 businesses to 4,800 in 3 years.
That's incredible.
They weren't First Nation businesses.
Oh.
There was a large scandal around it. Just last year, someone had recorded themselves asking...
Those were the pretendians, they call?
That is exactly it. As opposed to the Me Too, which is what you call me. Thanks a lot. What we do is we verify it and make sure that there isn't these fake businesses in there taking advantage of the opportunity, government, etc. So, we actually are registered by the province of Manitoba. The province goes to our directory. If you're going to bid on a project, they come to check that you are a verified bidder. So anyone with a business, small or big, can come join that for free.
Oh, I love that, Christopher. Listen, before we end the show, my company, Michael Birch Group of Companies, michaelbirch.ca, is growing leaps and bounds.
It is.
And maybe you want to explain, like you and I are such good friends, and I want to bring trusted people into my inner circle. And that's really important to me. And I have these really strong foot soldiers, I'd like to call. People that are committed, honest, hardworking. Do you want to explain what we're going to be doing to the, our audience, what Michael Birch and Christopher Henry are going to be doing in the future?
Absolutely. I think that, my role with the Chamber isn't over. We're very close to finding a new CEO to take that over. At which point in time I'll return to the executive board, which is a volunteer board. So in talking with you and seeing what you were doing, I actually was pretty impressed with what you put together. You have the same thoughts that I do. Let's give back to the nations. Let's make sure that we partner with nations to make them the same amount of money. Let's be equal partners in these things. So, all the different things you do, from, fuel to carbon and
Yeah.
promotion and production and everything
Yeah.
else.
We're like a modern day chamber of commerce as well, but it's a different kind of chamber of commerce. We have a lot of these corporations that are coming on board that want to do business with our Indigenous people, but they got to get us first. You know what I mean?
You are what we would call the next step.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's similar that people are getting involved with your company and stuff. What we do is connect them, but they still need someone like you to come along and say, okay, well, here, now that you've shown you want to be in an Indigenous business world and you want to do this stuff, let me help take you that last mile.
Yeah.
You take them into the community, you get them those final connection.
Yeah.
It's one thing to say, hey, I'm part of the chamber. Where's everybody? Where's all my business?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
No.
You need a relationship, and the way to start a relationship is with someone who has a relationship, right? So you do the same thing we do.
Yeah.
You vet these partners. You look at them and say, no, they're truly coming from the right place. Maybe they've actually taken the time to understand the 7 teachings.
Yeah.
They've done
That's big
things
to us.
that are important to understand. When you're in a community, you have to be a part of that community. So what you do is that last mile. And I'm impressed with that. So I'm looking forward to coming in. I'm going to start working with you guys.
Right on.
I'm going to take a lead advisor position and
Like
guide you using my experience through business and everything else. Guide all the opportunities that you have and the opportunities to put together.
I love that. We're going to be ending the show. Now that you know who Christopher Henry is, you're going to be seeing him a lot in my inner circle in the future. This was a really exciting show. Thank you very much for your insight, Christopher. It's a pleasure to know you, and thank you very much for coming. Thank you, everybody, for watching this episode, all in a good way. Thank you very much. Aguse.
And never forget, always in a good way.